Everyone treats SQL like it's some kind of wizard spell. Truth is, it's less Harry Potter and more IKEA manual. You just need the basic pieces and how they snap together. And unlike IKEA furniture, there are no missing screws or mystery hex keys. Subscribe and grab the cheat sheet at m365.show. Quick and painless. By the end, you'll confidently write a safe select that gives you business answers without begging it. If you can wrangle pivot tables in Excel, you're already halfway to pulling your first query. Of course, knowing that doesn't stop the panic when you're staring at a totally blank query window. The blank query window panic. The blank query window panic is real. You open SQL Server Management Studio, faced with that gray canvas, and there's the cursor blinking at you like it's judging your entire career. For some folks, that blinking line carries the same weight as a countdown timer in a movie bomb scene. One wrong move and you imagine the whole database going up in flames. The funny part? That fear isn't logical. The blank window intimidates because we've been conditioned to think SQL is arcane, dangerous, and reserved for high priests of IT. But here's the truth. Your first step, typing select, isn't destructive. Select is read-only in normal usage. It generally doesn't change the data. That's worth pausing on. You can hit execute and all you get is information back. Nothing updates, nothing deletes. Still, quick reminder, verify this with Microsoft's own documentation for your safety, since some edge cases may exist. But the general safe takeaway, select is your way to ask questions, not swing an axe. So let's get rid of the fear early. Select literally means choose. When you say select customer name, total spend from orders where, order date, push 2025-01-01, order by total spend this key, you're not summoning demons. You're just asking, show me customers and what they spent since the new year, highest first. That's about as risky as reading a menu. No dragons, no alarms, no smoking servers, and that's what most people never get told. SQL was designed to be approachable. It wasn't supposed to sound like obscure math. Terms like relational algebra and expressive query models are only helpful if you're writing a textbook. For everyone else, they're just academic wrappers around a tool that really just helps you pick your data the way you'd pick items from a list. Gatekeeping language turns SQL into Klingon, but once you stop overthinking, it's just commands that read like polite requests. Meanwhile, the workplace makes this worse. You've probably seen the dreaded cycle. A manager asks for a simple breakdown, something like, who bought the most last month? Instead of running a quick select to answer in minutes, many people rush to open a ticket. Then the request sits in a queue, lost in IT's backlog, and by the time you get it, the question is already outdated. This isn't about blame, it's about missed opportunity. The tool to get the answer faster is sitting in front of you, but panic keeps it locked away. That's why reframing matters. SQL isn't a bomb, it's a waiter. You say, select burger, fries, but instead of fries, it's product name, sales total. The database doesn't argue, doesn't get the order wrong, and doesn't dump soda on your lap. It brings back exactly what you asked for. If you don't narrow your request, sure, it'll bring you the entire menu all at once. And that's where clauses like where and order by trim things down. But the base request is still simple, predictable, and safe. Let's take the mystique out of the core parts. Think recipe, not ritual. Select picks columns, from names the table. Where filters rows, order by sorts. Done. You string them together and the pattern repeats across almost every query. It's systemized, not mysterious. Once you start seeing SQL as a set of building blocks instead of spells, the intimidation factor drops. That mental flip is powerful. It moves you from a place of dependence, waiting for IT to hand over reports, to taking direct control of your own questions. You stop worrying you'll break production just by looking at it, because looking is exactly what select does. And once you see patterns in one query, you'll recognize them everywhere. Now, here's where things get interesting. Microsoft couldn't resist adding its own brand identity to this. They didn't just hand you SQL, they spiced it with extras and called it T-SQL. Same foundation, but with quirks, enhancements, and some hurdles if you're trying to copy and paste from Google or Stack Overflow. And that's where the next layer of confusion comes in. T-SQL versus SQL, Microsoft's branding spin. Microsoft calls T-SQL just SQL with extras. That sounds harmless enough, until you paste in a script from some blog and SQL Server rejects it like you try to teach it Klingon. Suddenly, those little extras aren't so optional. The obvious question is, what are they and do they matter when you just want a quick report? Sometimes no, other times yes, and if you're not ready, they'll trip you and make you think the database is gaslighting you. Here's the plain reality. SQL is the international standard. Think basic grammar rules. Select, from, where, order by. T-SQL is Microsoft's house dialect, their way of seasoning the dish. Most of the time, the core flavor stays the same. A select that pulls customers and sales totals runs fine in SQL, it runs fine in T-SQL. So far, so safe. The real issue comes when you start leaning on functions, error handling, or more complex logic. That's when Microsoft insists you speak with their accent. A common frustration looks like this. You grab a query online that uses limit to trim results, paste it into SQL Server, and the error pops up. Why? In T-SQL, the equivalent is top. Same outcome, different keyword. Now, whether top versus limit is the exact difference, check Microsoft's documentation to confirm. That part matters because if you rely on memory or hearsay, you'll waste an afternoon rewriting perfectly valid code into Microsoft's chosen phrasing. Let's make this concrete. Verify the details in Microsoft's docs. But here are the sorts of differences you're likely to run into. Procedural control. If and while loops, so you can move beyond simple queries and build logic inside your database code. Error handling. Try. Catch blocks, useful for making automated jobs fail gracefully instead of just exploding mid-run. Batch separators, the Go keyword, which breaks big scripts into units. Result trimming. Top for the first rows instead of limit. Again, check each of those with official documentation before you take them as absolute, because SQL standard versus T-SQL drift is exactly where you can misstep. But the big picture is clear enough. Microsoft bolted on features to help with stored procedures, automation, and error control. And this is where intent matters. If you're just running selects for numbers in a meeting, you won't care. As long as you stick to the basics, you're safe. Select columns from a table where something matches. All that's virtually identical in any SQL flavor. Problems only surface when you paste in more advanced snippets that assume a different dialect. That's when the red squiggly line shows up. And SQL Server tells you nothing more helpful than incorrect syntax near X. The metaphor I like best is this. Standard school is like English everyone agrees on. Short, clear sentences. T-SQL is Microsoft's local slang. 90% is the same. The extras are just quirks you need when you get deeper. It doesn't mean English stops working. It just means if you're in Texas and you ask for soda, don't be surprised when they stare until you say Coke. Here's the important pivot. Those extensions don't replace what you know, they extend it. Think about automated reports. Without try, catch, one error in a nightly job kills the whole thing, and you wake up to angry emails. With T-SQL's error handling, you can log the problem, keep the rest of the process running, and avoid a 5 a.m. disaster call. That's real value, not just Microsoft being fussy. But again, check the docs before you rely on any of these features. You don't want to build a process on faulty assumptions. So how do you keep your sanity? First, remember your basics are safe. Select from where order by, they're unchanged. No dialect drama there. Second, when you hit an error on a copied snippet, ask yourself, is this failing because I don't understand SQL or because it's written for a different dialect? 9 times out of 10, it's the second. That's not a knowledge gap on your part. It's a translation problem. Learn the accent, check the syntax differences in Microsoft's documentation, and you're back in control. Bottom line, don't panic about extras. They're not roadblocks, they're optional power tools. You don't need them to pull quick answers, but when you start building repeatable processes, dashboards, or anything automated, they'll earn their keep. Knowing where T-SQL diverges is like knowing the local slang. It won't stop you from ordering a sandwich, but it will save you from ordering something you didn't mean. And since the basics really are the same, let's go back to the absolute foundation. Before loops, error handling, or fancy functions, you need to type your very first select. And that's where things get interesting. Your first select is kind of like your first text message. The shorter and clearer it is, the better. The Select Survival Guide. So let's strip it down to exactly what you need. The Select Survival Guide. This is the part where SQL stops looking like random incantations and starts working for you. Select is your opener, and the good news is it doesn't change your data in standard practice. You can fumble the syntax, run it, and nothing gets deleted. It's the safest place to learn. Now, select by itself isn't enough. Type just select, and SQL Server stares back at you thinking, select what exactly? That's where from comes in. Select is the what, from is the source. Skip from, and you may as well email your boss with nothing but numbers. Not helpful. From is how you point to the actual table that holds the records you want. Here's the shape of a complete request. Select specific columns from the table where the condition, order by the thing that gives order. It sounds simple because it is. Once you lay the pieces out, let's put that in one concrete line. Select customer name, total spend from orders, where order date, 2024, 01, order by total spend, DESC. This is short enough to read aloud, easy to copy, and runnable as is. That one snippet shows you all 4 core clauses in one breath. Think of where as your filter. Without it, you're asking the system to dump every record ever created at your feet. Best case, you waste your time scrolling. Worst case, you choke your machine returning a million rows. Where is your shield? One sales only after January 1st? That condition keeps you safe and sane. You'll thank yourself the first time a query ends in seconds instead of spinning endlessly. Order by is your sanity saver. Without it, SQL sends results in whatever random order the engine feels like. You ask for sales and it sorts them by some unseen internal ID you didn't care about. Order by lets you make sense of output, by date, by customer name, by spend. Just remember, it can be expensive on massive datasets, so use it deliberately. Want a micro win while we're here? Grab the copy-paste friendly cheat sheet. It's free at m365.show. That way you don't have to rewind this video every time you forget a clause. Here's the bottom line. Select picks from targets where narrows order by organizers. That's the rhythm to drill into your muscle memory. Most of the so-called urgent tickets managers fire at IT boil down to this exact pattern. Show me customers who bought last week, sorted by spend. That's one clean select statement, not 2 weeks waiting in the help desk queue. And because select doesn't modify data under standard use, practicing it is stress-free. Run it, rerun it, break it, and the only thing you'll damage is your patience if you forget where. You're already eliminating bottlenecks just by learning this one pattern. The empowerment is real. No tickets, no waitlists, no translations through 3 IT layers. You type it, you run it, and the answer is in your hands. And that's why select is the cornerstone. It's structured, predictable, and once you see how the pattern repeats, it becomes second nature. But let's not pretend this is the whole journey. Up to now, we've been pulling data from one tidy table at a time, like shopping from one clean shelf. But your company's data isn't arranged neatly like that. It's scattered between multiple tables, customers here, orders there, payments in a different corner. Sooner or later, those tables need to work together. And that's where the real survival challenge begins, because linking tables is less like clean shelving and more like messy relationships waiting to implode. Next, when your data lives in different tables, joins are how you stitch it together, and they're where mistakes start costing you time. Joins, the relationship drama. Joins are like dating apps. Sometimes you get a perfect pair, 2 tables syncing like they belong together, and sometimes you end up with a messy mismatch that leaves you wondering why one customer ID is suddenly tied to 300 accounts in Delaware. That's joins for you, the joy, the pain, and the occasional bad blind date. Business data rarely lives neatly in one table. Customers hang out over here, transactions stack up over there, and product info sits in a forgotten corner until an executive demands it on Monday morning. That's why joins exist. They're the awkward middleman trying to connect everyone. On paper, joins seem straightforward. Tables need to talk, joins make introductions. But you don't have to write many queries before realizing how quickly things go sideways. Pick the wrong one, and half your data vanishes, or worse, duplicates start multiplying like bad macros in Excel. Now your totals are either suspiciously low or weirdly inflated, and people are asking you to explain phantom revenue that never existed. Inner versus left join is where most new users stumble. And with names that sound more like workout poses than query logic, the confusion is understandable. So let's break it down in plain English and on screen with a runnable example. An inner join only shows rows where both tables agree. If a customer exists in customers and that same ID exists in orders, you'll see the match. No overlap, no row. Think of it like 2 people swiping right on each other. Mutual yes, and the date happens. The code looks like this. Select C. Name O total from customers. C inner join orders O on C ID equals O customer ID. Read that slowly out loud. It helps listeners stick the pattern in their memory. A left join is more forgiving. It keeps every record in the left table, even if the right table doesn't have a match. You still show up to the date, but sometimes the other seat is empty. That's where nulls come in, the database's way of saying, yeah, we don't know this part. Example line, select C, name O total from customers. C left, join orders O on C ID, A O customer ID. Say this one slowly too. It's the simplest way to demonstrate how a left join hangs onto all the customers, while some order details may come back blank. Why does this matter? Because the wrong join changes your story. Use inner when data is still syncing between systems and suddenly entire orders disappear from your report. Your totals shrink, panic spreads, and leadership thinks sales cratered overnight. I've seen it. A revenue report dropped 40% because the join excluded all new customers not yet pushed into the CRM. The fix was simply flipping inner to left, or better, ensuring the upstream data integration caught up. But in the moment, the wrong join rewrote the business narrative. To steer clear of traps, here's a safe workflow. First, sanity check whether you even have missing links. Run a quick count of orphaned rows, transactions without matching customers, or customers without linked orders. Knowing those gaps gives you proof before picking inner or left. If there are orphans, left join usually makes more sense for reporting, so you can see everything, blanks included. It's not a hard rule, but it's often the safer starting point in reporting scenarios. Inner join is better when you know the relationships are rock solid, like high-trust partnerships. And yes, you'll have to deal with those nulls. Every blank column is a reminder of missing or incomplete data. They aren't errors, they're signals. If you see far too many, the problem probably isn't SQL, it's your upstream feeds or foreign keys. Pay attention because fixing the pipeline matters more than patching with a quick syntax tweak. Compared to Excel gymnastics with VLOOKUP or index match chains, joins in T-SQL are a relief. The syntax is clean, no duct tape formulas. Customers here, orders there, connect on customer ID. It just works. Once you practice, join statements almost read like sentences. By this stage, you've got the basics to link tables and avoid the worst misunderstandings. But here's the thing, joins are not what usually brings a database to its knees. The bigger mess comes from rookie mistakes that look harmless but can swamp performance or chew up resources until the DBA calls you out. Want to watch MVPs walk through real join disasters? Follow M365 on Show for live streams and you'll see the horror stories live. And stick around because before those live streams, you need to know which blunders actually make DBAs cry. That's up next. Mistakes that make DBAs cry. Mistakes that make DBAs cry aren't usually sabotage. They're the rookie blunders that feel harmless when you type them but hit production like a freight train. You think you're running a test. The server thinks you've declared war. And the DBA, they're watching their monitoring dashboard light up like a Christmas tree and quietly adding your name to the list of people they mutter about over coffee. The first culprit is select. It looks so clean. 1 star, all the data, done. Except SQL takes you literally and drags every single column across the wire. That means the useful stuff like customer name and order date, but also the detritus. Audit columns no one remembers, deprecated fields that should have been dropped 10 years ago, and the infamous notes column where some rep once typed his grocery list. Suddenly, you're pulling back gigabytes you don't need. Mitigation tip: pick only the columns you actually require. Don't type customer name, total spend, and whatever else matters. Your future self and your network will thank you. The second offender is the missing where clause. You thought you ran last month's sales. What you really asked for was every sale since the dawn of corporate history. The result, a flood of rows pouring into your result grid, burning temp space, trashing performance, and forcing your coworkers to reboot queries that now won't finish. Mitigation tip: always scope your queries, at minimum add a date range, or if you're just testing, use the top keyword to trim results. But because syntax varies, double check the official T-SQL documentation for top and offset fetch so you're not guessing at keywords. The third mistake is overusing order by on massive tables. Sure, tidy results look nice, but order by isn't free. On small sets, it's a blink. On huge unindexed tables, it's torture. The engine has to grab the whole pile, shuffle it by hand, and then spit it back. Performance tanks, everything else waits its turn, and you're suddenly responsible for why response times went from seconds to minutes. Mitigation tip: check if your sort column has an index. If not, test with a subset before hitting production with a full order by. Again, verify the exact indexing approach in Microsoft Docs if you're not sure where to look. Now, sometimes those 3 landmines combine. I once saw a practice query fire against production with select, index, nowhere, and an order by on a column with no index. The machine nearly keeled over. That single run ballooned into something that ate temporary storage, locked sessions, and brought backups to a crawl. It wasn't malicious, it was just shortcut habits all colliding at once. For the DBA on call, though, the difference between ignorance and attack didn't matter. The system was down either way. And notice I didn't name numbers here. Those were real details in one shop, but don't assume it happens exactly the same in yours. These mistakes sting because they scale. You try them in dev with 100 rows, no harm. You aim them at production with 100 million, disaster. And once someone copies your sloppy query into their own, the pain multiplies. That select turns into a team-wide reflex. That missing where clause gets normalized. That order by becomes a tradition. Before long, your entire reporting culture becomes a denial of service waiting to happen. The way out is precision. Not perfection, just precision. Choose columns on purpose. Scope your results with where clauses or top ranges. Think twice before sorting wide datasets, and when you must, be smart about indexes. Those 3 habits will dodge the majority of rookie disasters that drive DBAs up the wall. And yeah, DBAs joke about all this. They'll sigh, mock you a little, and maybe even send you a screenshot of the server gasping under your query. But the underlying frustration is real because these aren't exotic failings. They're everyday shortcuts that eat resources for sport. Fix them, and you'll instantly stand out as someone who respects the system instead of treating it like free storage space. Clean up these 3 habits, and you won't just save face. You'll avoid most of the incidents that make DBAs cry. More importantly, you shift from being the person who broke it to the person who reliably gets answers without breaking a sweat. And that brings us to the bigger win. When you stop tripping over rookie mistakes, even the most basic select starts to feel like a superpower. You're not waiting for IT, you're not flooding the system, and you're finally in control of your own questions. Let's wrap this up with 3 things to keep burned into your brain. 1. Select is your practice mode. It's read only under normal use, so running it is safe. 2. Always point to the right table with from and cut the noise with where. Filters save you from drowning in rows. 3. Joins are powerful, but treat them carefully. Inner means both sides match. Left means you'll keep everything on the left and blanks where there's no partner. Here's your homework. Run one safe query on a read-only dataset, or ask it for a read-only clone, and try the select bus join example we covered. That's how you build confidence without wrecking production. Subscribe at m365.show for survival guides from MVPs. Follow the M365 Show LinkedIn page for live streams. That's the toolkit you need to keep your queries and your reputation out of trouble.